I'd kind of like to finish one thread before we move on
Okay,
to that.
sure.
We'll get back to that later. We were talking about your stand-up earlier instead of the podcast.
Yeah.
I listened to your stand-up and I didn't like it. And then I listened to your podcast and I did like it. What's that about?
So wait, you didn't like my comedy, but then you found the podcast and you liked that, and then you liked the comedy.
No, I understood the comedy. I didn't like it.
Okay, but you still didn't like it.
And I may not even understand it still.
Okay, that's a good... What do you not understand about it?
Well, like, from listening to the podcast, I feel like I understand where you're coming from a little bit better, but like your sense of humor is kind of twisted. And
yeah,
I feel like by definition that makes it so most people don't understand it.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I understand humor like that, but there's also a piece of it that I don't understand, and that's just like, why? Like, I see you do stand up, and so often I'm just like, why?
Okay, so this is a philosophical debate that goes on in my head constantly about the relationship between truth and humor. So something I've gotten in the habit of saying, because I feel intuitively like this is true, is that humor is the shadow of truth. So there's some overlap between these two things. There's definitely true things that are funny, but there's a lot of things that are not true, that are hilarious. And sometimes if it's like aggressively untrue, so inappropriately untrue, it's like gut reaction of like, I just didn't see that coming. That was just so abrupt. That was so much really painfully aggressive execution of it too. There's something about going really hard in that direction that gets that reaction out of me, and I know other people, not everyone. And part of I think that depth of a laugh, because I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, but I separate different kinds of laughter. Like there's the mouth laughter. Have you heard this before?
Yeah, obviously.
So it's just when you go deep down in there. That's what I'm after. And I think that the further you go, there's certain people that just don't want to go that deep. And I think that there's some sort of correlation of humor being the shadow of truth. There's something a little immoral about that too. Because another definition I've heard from a lot of philosophical discussion is thinking of the word truth rather than like objective scientific terms strictly. Because a lot of people kind of think that's all there is, that's truth. But truth as in more of like a metaphorical definition, and a definition that's like that which is more useful. And that's a, reality warping way of thinking about it, I think. Where like, nope, I went too deep. Nope.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like from a certain perspective, like I understand your perspective and that sounds great, but I think from a lot of people's perspective, it can seem more like you're just looking for an excuse to go on stage and say fucked up shit.
Yes. And I think that there is a balance in the acting element that has to be played. And I think sometimes I pull it off well, and sometimes I'm not pulling it off quite right. There's a few reasons why I'm so inconsistent in terms of like me being consistently doing it right and like just crushing every 4 minutes I do, being a master at it. Most comedians that get to that level of mastery where they're just so fucking great at crushing it pretty consistently, the kind of given process is you got to repeat the shit out of your material. You got to just keep doing it. Same shit. Polish your shit. Know every fucking word.
And you don't do that.
No, I repeat my material very little, and I'm constantly trying new shit. And
like the idea of you writing a poem every day versus you spending 90 days on one poem.
Yeah. And that the reason, and that's just what I'm doing in this particular era of the past few years. I've had different eras where I put a little more thought and I do actually repeat my material a little more and I polish it up. But to the degree which I do that. So I can create a certain amount of consistency the more I go in that direction. But right now, I'm not doing showcases. I'm just doing open mics. And to me, I feel like doing an open mic and treating it like a showcase and making sure you're just doing polished material that you already know works is a waste of an open mic. And that's from a working on the craft and sharpening my sword perspective rather than like, this is me doing the thing. I'm a professional and I got to be A game every time. This is like, no, I got to like experiment and fucking fall flat on my fucking face and get real good at failing. I got to get real good at like being able to, on a fucking whim, make up. And definitely my growth has been a lot slower than most comedians that just take the time to polish material and rotate more slowly and be more consistent. I'm taking a harder, longer path because maybe stubbornness, but it's what I intuitively feel like is a better thing for me to do. It's the thing that interests me the most, maybe.
So, how do you want people to view you as a comedian on stage?
So, I think this was a thought I was starting earlier, and I maybe lost my train of thought, but there's some element of a lot of the gut laughter, especially in the context of a comedy club or like you're in a audience in a comedy show, is if you are someone that gets it and you like it. It's like maybe you can get it and not like it, and that's perfectly reasonable. And maybe you can just not get it and that's why you don't like it. Or maybe you get it and you like it. And I think the people that get it and like it, when they hear that material, they're laughing at the material, probably less because the material itself, like, oh, that's brilliant. It's like, we're laughing at this guy, like kind of socially crucifying himself. Why would anyone say this publicly? Like that's why the laughter, it's less about like what I'm saying, but the experience I'm creating in the room. By like saying what I'm saying, and I think the acting element that I made me to pull off is a certain kind of confidence that goes with that just makes the 4-minute performance absurd.
And it's like you're sacrificing a part of you for that.
Yes. Yeah, there is definitely a some sort of like psychological and emotional pain that can be inflicted when I fail, more so than if I were to try to aim to be a little less offensive and a little more tame, like concern myself with that kind of thing, and focus on material that just doesn't go to those like uncomfortable, dark places that can polarize a room in such a way. I feel like that wouldn't be as fun for me.
So how does it feel having people out there that genuinely think you, Cameron Smith, as a person, are who you present yourself as on stage? Like racist, sexist, all of it.
Honestly, dude, I just feel like I don't care. Like, people are going to have positive opinions and negative opinions of you no matter what, and I kind of don't care what the details of that is. It's just it's a binary yes or no. Does this person hate me or do they love me? And it's just like, that's going to happen no matter what I do. And to me, I think that when some of that material that would make someone who's misreading the context of the fact that this is a comedy performance, and maybe isn't as psychologically immersed in like the philosophy around that particular art form of creating comedy. Like most people aren't that. And I feel like that's why I'm never upset with audience members who hate my guts because they don't get it. Right? They're not able to contextualize. He can play a racist in the context of this art form and still not be one. Rather than like, that material is racist, he must genuinely be racist. That's their burden to carry. I don't feel like that's on me. You know? If they want to write me off over that, that's fine. I'm at peace with it. I feel like if I were in their shoes, no matter what, I would think, okay, maybe I don't find this material funny. And this person is not funny. But then what are they like off stage, I think would be my question.
And it seems like the podcast is a good answer to that question.
I agree. And I think that's one of those, like, in hindsight benefits I think I realized maybe right before I started doing it, but maybe a little more so as I was doing it, especially. Well, this is going to be a mind fuck because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was just, I talk about that pattern a lot of people writing me off at one point because they've seen my art and made a judgment about me. They're like, I don't like that guy, you know? And then later, through whatever various circumstances, they get a glimpse into who I am off stage and it makes them change their mind. And having these moments like that repeat with people that are great friends of mine, you know, over time. So some of my greatest friends are the people that I've had like that moment with. And I don't know. To me, I feel like I have my world of, there is the art. My number one thing is I'm creating the art I want to create. And then the social circle that ensues as a result of that, I'm at peace with. I love those people. Let's see who it attracts and who it fucking gets away from me. And I think maybe I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I feel the same way about like romance. Like, I know I am a fucking fucked up, weird shaped key. And that when I was talking about I could go on two paths and a version of my life where I have a family and a version of my life where I don't, I honestly don't know which of those paths I want more. I think I want the family. I think I would choose the family, but only if I meet the right person. And so I feel like I try to be extremely upfront with the fact that I'm a relatively difficult person to digest.
You'd be a wild dad, too.
Yeah, perhaps.
In a good way.
Yeah. My dad was a wild dad. Our dad.
Thirsty boy.
God rest your soul, Marion J. Smith the third.